Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. A Saturday afternoon in the bustling center of Chicago, the cafe terraces are overflowing with people. The sun shines on the glass and steel facades, luxury cars rub shoulders with crowded buses, and everyone seems in a hurry to get somewhere. In the midst of this tumult, a black sedan with tinted windows stops in front of an elegant bookstore. From the car gets off Marcus Johnson, in his 40s, distinguished appearance, impeccable gray suit. His gait is calm, his gaze calm, almost reassuring. At first glance, nothing surprising, a well-dressed man, perhaps there to buy a book or meet someone. But for two police officers stationed nearby, his mere presence is enough to arouse unjustified suspicion. "Look at this," one of them whispers to his colleague, "a black guy getting out of a car like that? How much do you bet it's not his?" The other nods with a smirk. Without pausing to observe further, they set off, their hands already close to their belts. What Marcus doesn't know yet is that in a matter of moments, this ordinary Saturday will become the starting point of a scandal that will shake the entire city. Marcus had only taken a few steps when he heard a dry voice behind him. "Sir! Stop immediately." He turned around. Two police officers were approaching with purposeful steps, their eyes suspicious. Around them, passers-by were slowing down, intrigued. "Your identity papers, right away," ordered the first officer, a tall man with a closed face. Marcus frowned slightly, but remained polite. "May I know why you are arresting me?" The second agent sneered. "We received a report. You matched the description of a suspect. And this car," he pointed to the sedan parked behind Marcus, "I would like to see who it really belongs to." A murmur rippled through the small crowd that was beginning to form. Some passers-by discreetly took out their cell phones. Marcus took a deep breath. He calmly held out his wallet, knowing full well that his identification would be enough to clarify the situation. But instead of checking his papers, the officer snatched the wallet from his hands and quickly searched it, before saying accusingly, "This smells like a scam. We'll take you to the police station, and you'll explain things there." "I have done nothing illegal, and I ask you to respect the procedure," Marcus replied, his voice firm but controlled. The tall policeman moved closer, his tone becoming threatening. "Either you cooperate, or we'll handcuff you in front of everyone. The choice is yours." Marcus's heart pounded, but his face remained impassive. He knew he had done nothing wrong. Yet he already understood, this wasn't a routine check. This was a public humiliation. Within seconds, the action he'd been dreading came. The policeman pulled out his handcuffs and roughly grabbed Marcus by the arm. "You are under arrest. You will come and explain where this stolen car came from." Passers-by were immediately outraged. "But he didn't do anything," shouted a woman from the cafe terrace. "We saw him arrive quietly, leave him alone," added a young man, phone in hand. Marcus felt the stares weighing on him, the cameras pointed, the whispers growing louder. He, the sober and respected man, found himself exposed like a criminal, his wrists bound, his honor trampled underfoot. He clenched his jaw, tried to keep calm. "Gentlemen, what you are doing is a serious mistake. My identity is clear, and this car is legally mine." But his words were lost in the tumult. The second policeman, irritated by his dignity, roughly pushed him toward their vehicle. "Get in and shut up. You'll talk to the police." The crowd reacted strongly. Some shouted, "Shame on you," others filmed more closely, shocked by the unnecessary brutality. Marcus, for his part, lowered his eyes for a moment. Not out of submission, but to contain the anger boiling within him. For he knew one thing, sooner or later, the truth would come out, and when that day came, it wouldn't be him, but his uniformed attackers, who would have to answer for it. The police car sped through the streets. In the back, Marcus, handcuffed, stared out the tinted window. His reflection reflected back to him an image that seemed unreal, a respectable man, treated like a criminal in front of the world. Inside the cabin, the police officers joked among themselves. Do you bet he'll come up with some incredible story? Like, lawyer or doctor? Yeah, these guys always have excuses. But now he's going to have a rough time. Marcus closed his eyes. He didn't need to answer. Soon, their own words would turn against them. Arriving at the police station, the officers abruptly took him downstairs. Inside, the reception was cold, no immediate verification of his identity, no presumption of innocence. He was led directly to an interrogation room. The room was dark, lit by a single hanging lamp. Marcus sat down, still handcuffed. Opposite him, one of the police officers crossed his arms and called out. Okay, come on, admit it. You stole that car, didn't you? Marcus held her gaze without blinking. No. This car belongs to me. And if you bothered to check, you would realize it. The other policeman slammed the table with the flat of his hand. Enough. You think we're stupid? A black man in a luxury sedan? That doesn't add up. Who do you think you're fooling? A heavy silence followed this sentence. Marcus took a deep breath and replied in a low but firm voice. You are the one who is wrong. And when the truth comes out, you will understand how much your prejudices cost you. At that precise moment, the door to the room opened. A lieutenant entered, holding a file in his hands. His face, initially neutral, froze as he read the information in front of him. His eyes flicked from the paper to Marcus, then to the officers. The first crack had just appeared. The lieutenant stood motionless for a few seconds, his gaze fixed on the file. His hands trembled slightly, betraying an unusual discomfort. The two officers waited defiantly, convinced that Marcus was finally going to be caught. So, who's your suspect? One of the policemen said with a smirk. But the lieutenant didn't answer right away. He slowly looked up at Marcus, and his expression changed completely. His pupils dilated, his mouth parted as if he couldn't quite believe it. You're Marcus Johnson, he said in a hesitant voice. Marcus, still sitting, handcuffed, replied calmly. That's right. And I think your colleagues have just made a serious mistake. Silence fell over the room. The police officers exchanged incredulous looks. What? One of them whispered. Impossible, added the other. The lieutenant snapped the file shut, then barked. Release him immediately. The agent stood frozen, as if paralyzed by shame. But... Lieutenant, he... Not another word. Do you realize what you just did? This man is Deputy State Attorney General and legal advisor to the governor. An icy silence filled the room. The two police officers, who had been laughing at Marcus just minutes earlier, were now pale, unable to utter a single apology. Marcus, for his part, hadn't moved. He watched the scene with an implacable dignity, almost more formidable than anger. The game had barely begun. The keys jingled nervously between the officer's fingers as he reached out to remove the handcuffs. The metal clicked, finally freeing Marcus's wrists. His wrist still bore the red mark of restraint, but his gaze remained calm, almost icy. He stood up slowly, adjusted his suit, then placed his hands on the table. His voice, deep and calm, broke the heavy silence. I told you from the start that you were making a mistake. But instead of checking, you chose humiliation. Not just for me, but in front of an entire crowd of citizens. Tell me, is this how you serve justice? The two police officers remained silent, heads bowed, like schoolchildren caught in the act. The lieutenant, embarrassed, tried to intervene. Mr. Johnson, I apologize on behalf of the department. These men did not follow procedure, and they will have to answer for it. Marcus interrupted him with a calm but firm gesture. No, Lieutenant. This isn't just a matter of procedure. It's a matter of prejudice. Of racism. Because in their eyes, a well-dressed black man getting out of a luxury car can only be a criminal. His words echoed in the room, heavy, undeniable. He straightened up, crossed his arms and added solemnly. I'm not here just as a prosecutor. I'm here as a citizen. And believe me, what happened today will not go unpunished. You wanted to humiliate me. But it's your faces, your names, and your actions that will soon be known to everyone. The police officers lowered their heads even more. The lieutenant, pale, understood that this affair was going to explode far beyond the walls of the police station. Marcus, meanwhile, headed for the exit. His gait, slow and assured, had the force of a declaration. The fight had barely begun. The sharp slam of the door behind him sounded like a verdict. Marcus left the station under the embarrassed gaze of several officers, some looking down, others pretending to be otherwise occupied. News of his arrest had already begun to circulate through the corridors, and everyone understood that it was only a matter of time before the case became a scandal. Outside, the cool air hit his face. The crowd that had gathered earlier hadn't moved. Phone cameras focused on him as soon as he appeared. Murmurs rose up. It's him. The prosecutor they were talking about. Did they really handcuff him like a criminal? Shame on the police. Marcus raised a hand, asking for silence. His calmness commanded respect. My friends, he began in a strong but calm voice, thank you for your support. Today, I was not arrested because I broke the law. I was arrested because my skin color does not match the image some people have of a dignified and respectable man. A shudder ran through the crowd. Phones remained raised, recording every word. Marcus continued. I'm not angry just for myself. I'm angry for all those who, every day, suffer these injustices without their voices being heard. If this happens to me, the state prosecutor, imagine what those who have neither status nor a camera to testify to their dignity are going through. Applause erupted. Some chanted his name, others were already holding up makeshift signs. The scene took on the air of a spontaneous gathering. Marcus knew he had just laid the foundation stone for a fight bigger than himself. His humiliating arrest had now become a formidable weapon, the truth, brought to light. That same evening, images of Marcus's arrest were already circulating on social media. Dozens of videos filmed by passers-by showed the elegant man, handcuffed, publicly humiliated, despite his impeccable composure. Less hashtags #JusticeForMarcus, #ProfileAgeRacial and #StopRacismPolicy set Twitter and Instagram ablaze. Within hours, the videos had been viewed by millions of internet users, shared by celebrities, journalists, and even politicians. On the TV sets, the debates continued one after the other. This is an absolute scandal, a presenter said. How can two police officers humiliate the assistant state's attorney like this? A guest lawyer was indignant. What if he hadn't been who he is? What if he had been an ordinary citizen? Asked a journalist, her voice trembling with emotion. The streets of Chicago quickly filled with protesters. Placards held up the words, "Enough, stop profiling," or even, "Dignity has no color." Tensions were running high at the police station. The two arresting officers, now suspended, were avoiding the cameras and the anger of their colleagues. One of them, livid, whispered, "We're finished, they're going to drag us through the mud." Meanwhile, in his simple but elegant apartment, Marcus watched the news on the giant screen in his living room. Thousands of faces in the streets chanted his name. He hadn't sought this battle, but it had come to him. And now he had no right to back down. He grabbed his phone, dialed a number, and said in a firm voice, "Arrange a press conference for tomorrow morning. It's time I addressed the country." The next morning, the lobby of a large downtown hotel was crowded with reporters, cameras, and microphones. Marcus Johnson arrived, immaculate in his gray suit, his face serene. No sign of nervousness, instead, a calm, imposing authority. As soon as he took the stage, a respectful silence fell. The journalists had heard of his arrest, but no one was prepared for the impact of his presence. Marcus began. "Yesterday, I was arrested without cause. Handcuffed, humiliated in front of a crowd, and filmed by passers-by. All this simply because I am a black man." A murmur ran through the room. The cameras remained focused on him, capturing every word. I am the state's Deputy Attorney General and legal advisor to the governor. Yet, no title, no status has prevented me from being treated like a criminal. Imagine what that means to those who have neither recognition nor a camera to testify to their dignity. Applause erupted, some journalists recorded in silence, moved. Marcus continued. I don't just speak for myself. I speak for all those who experience this racial profiling every day. For all those whose rights are violated, whose dignity is trampled upon, without anyone speaking for them. He paused, letting his words resonate. Today, I am turning this humiliation into action. Those responsible will be held accountable, and I will continue to fight for justice, fairness, and an end to discrimination. At the end of his speech, the room erupted in applause. Cameras broadcast his words live across the country. Marcus had transformed a humiliating personal experience into a powerful and universal message. The hours following the press conference were chaotic for the police station. The two officers responsible for Marcus's arrest were immediately suspended, and an internal investigation was opened. Superiors realized that the video of the incident would go viral, and no amount of clumsy apologies would quell the public outrage. Spontaneous demonstrations took place on the streets of Chicago. Thousands of citizens held up signs, "Justice for Marcus, Stop Racial Profiling, Dignity Has No Color." The whole city seemed to vibrate to the rhythm of anger and indignation. Social media amplified the story even more quickly. Every media outlet, local and national, reported on Marcus's humiliation, and the attention paid to his message of justice and dignity transformed him into a symbol. Public figures, activists, and celebrities came to his defense, denouncing racial profiling and calling for reform. Even within the local administration, discussions were heated. Political leaders understood that rapid action was needed to limit the crisis, but also to support real reform of police practices. Marcus, for his part, was not satisfied with the satisfaction of immediate justice. He organized roundtables, of the awareness campaigns and met with civil rights groups. What had begun as a public humiliation was now transforming into a movement for reform. And in the police station, the two officers, now isolated, realized that their prejudices had triggered much more than a simple error. They had awakened an entire city and highlighted a systemic problem that they could no longer ignore. A few days later, Marcus was back in his office, behind his large wooden desk, watching the city through the large bay window. The sun was setting gently, and the lights of Chicago were beginning to twinkle. He thought back to that Saturday when everything had changed, the unjust arrest, the public humiliation, the stares from passers-by and the police. It had all been brutal, but he had managed to turn it into strength. His phone buzzed, journalists, associations, citizens wanted to speak with him. He answered calmly, aware that his voice was now a change tool. Marcus stood up, took a few steps into his office, and muttered to himself. They wanted to humiliate me. But they are the ones who will go down in history as those who tried to break a man of dignity and failed. He smiled slightly. What had started as a humiliation had now awakened a city, inspired a movement, and opened the eyes of many to the injustice of racial profiling. That day, Marcus understood that his voice and his status could make a difference. That every unjust act could become a lever for change. And above all, that no humiliation, however powerful, could crush a person determined to defend justice. He sat down, rested his hands on his desk, and watched Chicago light up in the twilight. The man who had been arrested for no reason was now a voice impossible to ignore, a symbol of dignity and justice.